On Monday, March 30th, Florida police arrested a Tampa-based pastor for violating Republican Governor Ron DeSantis' COVID-19 safer at home order and actually casting into view one of the most important and profound questions of our or any time. That question? To whom does one ultimately answer? God or the state? Hi, everyone. I'm Gardner Goldsmith for MRC-TV. I hope you're doing well. You know, according to the AP, police placed under arrest Pastor Rodney Howard Brown after detectives said he held 2 Sunday services at his Tampa church, violating Governor DeSantis' safer at home command that in part bars church gatherings of 10 or more people. According to jail records, Pastor Rodney Howard Brown turned himself into authorities Monday afternoon in Hernando County, where he lives. He was charged with unlawful assembly and violation of a public health emergency order. Bail was set at $500, according to the jail's website, and he was released after posting bond. Meanwhile, Pastor Howard Brown's legal team offered this side of the story. Not only did the church comply with the administrative order regarding 6-foot distancing, it went above and beyond any other business to ensure the health and safety of the people, said a statement from Liberty Counsel, Howard Brown's law firm. Contrary to Sheriff Cronister's allegation that Pastor Howard Brown was, quote, reckless, end quote, the actions of Hillsborough County and the Hernando County Sheriff are discriminatory against religion and church gatherings. And did Sheriff Cronister accuse the pastor of being reckless? He sure did. And he did so in an insulting and contradictory way that flies in the face of syntax, logic, ethics, the U.S. Constitution, and Christianity itself, saying at a news conference,
I believe there's nothing more important than faith during a time like this. And as a sheriff's office, we would never impede someone's ability to lean on their religious beliefs as a means of comfort. But practicing those beliefs has to be done safely.
In other words, he most certainly would impede if he thought that someone practicing his or her religious beliefs was not safe. And here's the rub.
Last night I made a decision to seek an arrest warrant for the pastor of a local church who intentionally and repeatedly chose to disregard the orders set in place by our president, our governor, the CDC, and the Hillsborough County Emergency Policy Group. His reckless disregard for human life put hundreds of people in his congregation at risk and thousands of residents who may interact with them this week in danger.
This is very important to dissect because it focuses on the core of many problems in the United States. First, the United States Constitution does not grant the president any power remotely akin to ordering people to not congregate or forcing them to stay in their homes. Nor has Mr. Trump issued such an order. This sheriff swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. And if he is so unfamiliar with its rules, he needs to brush up. By the way, the CDC isn't a government agency. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization. You can check it out if you want to. Second, the governor's order, like many in various states, is highly questionable on constitutional grounds. Not only does the First Amendment supposedly protect the right of worship, it also protects the right of assembly on public property. And this church isn't even public property and does not rely on tax money the way the sheriff's office does. It's private property. In fact, it's private property that traditionally is seen as a sanctuary from the government. All over the U.S., governors, state legislators, and the slack-jawed lackey press who cover them adopt the mantle that a government can simply order places to close. But as a new federal lawsuit by a Pennsylvania-based bell maker named Shomerick Bells going up against the Democrat governor of Pennsylvania, Governor Thomas Wolf, reveals such edicts conflict with the Constitution in very stark and very profound ways. As Damon Root explains for Reason, the governor has placed the cost of these orders, issued for the benefit of the public, squarely upon the shoulders of private individuals and their families, and has failed to justly compensate affected parties for these takings, undertaken for their benefit to the public. The suit states, these uncompensated seizures violate the takings clause of the Fifth Amendment. That's precisely right. In fact, University of Chicago law professor Richard Epstein became famous for his landmark 1985 book, Takings, in which he traces the legal history and logical primacy of the concept that it's not just the literal seizure of physical property that constitutes a government taking. A regulation or mandate to operate a business in a certain way, or in the cases of COVID-19 closure mandates, to close, is a form of property confiscation, a taking, and is constitutionally prohibited unless the governing body compensates affected persons. But this isn't stopping the politicians, and more than just Florida's DeSantis are engaging in this form of seizure and house arrest. Virginia's infamous master of disguise, Governor Ralph Northam,
I darkened my face,
has issued a similar edict, including gun stores, on his list of places that must close. Now, an edict from Donald Trump appears to have overridden that closure of gun stores, but Northam has also made it a crime to hold a religious event of more than 10 people, which signifies something very significant. It means that if Christ were physically walking the earth today, Northam and any other politician who issued such an edict would in fact make the Last Supper a punishable crime. And folks, this isn't hyperbole. More than 10 people attended Christ's gathering as the government gears worked to arrest and crucify him. He was the physical embodiment of the power greater than the state. And now we see how the state is treating people who worship the Creator. From Florida to Virginia to the pages of the New York Times, religious believers are not only being told to answer to the state above God, they're being blamed and scapegoated for the spread of COVID-19. And this brings us back to Sheriff Cronister's statement, a statement in which he claimed that the pastor put people at risk.
His reckless disregard for human life put hundreds of people in his congregation at risk, and thousands of residents who may interact with them this week in danger.
And of course, it allows us to see how that claim is so importantly misguided. See, Pastor Howard Brown put no one at risk, Sheriff. He did not kidnap people and bring them to his church. He simply opened his doors to people, and people joined him of their own free will. They put themselves at risk, Sheriff. And they have a God-given right, they have a God-given free will to do so, to defy the dictates of the governor and any other man who would lift himself above them and try to control their lives. In fact, it is the tax-demanding government that forces people to go places and do things like going to a possibly unsanitary jail when you arrest them. It is the government that jailed the pastor and government agents who can approach people and break the 6-foot distancing rule whenever they desire. As Ray Nostein wrote about James Madison, known, by the way, as the father of the Bill of Rights, Sheriff, Madison notes that man, quote, has a property of peculiar value in his religious opinions and in the profession and practice dictated by them, end quote. Furthermore, Madison declares this kind of property is the most sacred. You know, private property and voluntary association used to be respected. There once was more private property in America, and people understood the difference between congregating on public property, that's hard to control for the spread of viruses, for example, and private property, which allows exclusion and into which everyone enters voluntarily and assumes his or her own risk. And it used to be that Americans understood the fundamental Christian question about God-given free will versus the state. As Good Friday and Easter approach, everybody, perhaps a few politicians should open a Bible and think about those ideas. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody, and thanks to the MRC-TV team. Everybody is so great. It's so wonderful to be able to communicate with you and, of course, with all of them. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit the little bell because it's supposed to tell you when new videos pop up. Please share these everywhere you can because these types of videos often hit the algorithms of social media and they get pushed aside. And by the way, please visit MRC-store for great MRC fashions and go to MRCTV.org to find out everything that the team is doing. For MRC TV, I wish you all the best. I'm Gardner Goldsmith.